Thank you, everyone, and in particular, thanks to our sponsors and Sanjay for organising such a great event. I know we're only halfway through, but it's a really well-tempoed and well-organised event. I'm very grateful to be here. I'm still a little bit jet-lagged, having flown in yesterday from the UK. Back in the summer, we were fortunate enough to attend the Venice Biennale, and this year we were sponsor to the Great Britain Pavilion, which was this sequence of the Biennale, a collaboration between architects and creatives from Kenya and the UK, looking at what was titled The Geology of Britannic Repair, and an analysis and attitude towards the extractive processes of colonization and the resolution and coming to terms with that and the new era. It was fascinating, and our opportunity was to, the opportunity there was to also consider the origins of humanity, because a lot of the schemes were looking at the Rift Valley as evidenced by the upturned map of Africa in the background. And this rather odd cast bronze creature that sat almost like an appendix on a doctor's table in the middle of one of the pavilion halls. It was actually, and most people had that same expression as the gentleman in the yellow jacket, just kind of querying and inquisitive and wanting to know more. It's actually a 3D model, a cast of a lava tube just in northern Kenya, and where the origins of civilization occurred, not least for humans, but prior to humans, primates. And it's commonly known in the region, and some of you may well have visited, as the baboon parliament. It's where the baboons sit. There's a hierarchy. The adult males stay longer and discuss and chat and communicate. And it's the basis of shelter and refuge. And cave architects, who are an incredible bunch of individuals and a wonderful team, drew parallels with the cave form and proportion, fast forwarding almost 200 millennia to the Pantheon in Rome, and the oculus in the ceiling and the space for congregation below. It was fascinating because it's obviously some of the key fundamentals that still exist in the work that we do as architects, the work that we show here as Ten Design, and all the images you see from now on will be from us and our scheme. But the interface and the interest between what is the human-centric experience and how we mediate between nature, the natural, and the man-made, in that all our architectural edifices are effectively hosted by the planet and by nature, and how we continually oscillate between the past, the present, and the future in our critical thinking. So in terms of the past, particular reference to memory, to layers and layers of archaeology and the palimpsest of heritage and culture and civilization, art and cultural history. And then the future in terms of innovation, technology, emerging trends, AI, and our new and emerging relationship with the digital world. And then as those elements that are impacted and present in all of our work collectively in terms of nature, air, light, water, flora, and the temporal world, and form material, shade, rhythm, and drama in the man-made world. All of our work has a direct impact on our well-being. We're a data-driven practice, but I'm not going to labor you with information. It's on the screen. I don't want to talk about data today. I'd rather show you some imagery and keep it light. So 2 parts, nature, natural, and then the man-made. The notes to the bottom right of each image are where these projects are located. We've had a 20-year legacy of designing and building in the Middle East, and most notably in Dubai, more latterly in Abu Dhabi, but Oman and Bahrain and elsewhere, and KSA more recently in the last decade. But we recognise, and one of our first projects was with a nursery merchant family, Al-Barari, the Zal family, where we learned a lot that we've now applied to several residential developments across the world, but in particular in the Middle East, where the benefit of established biophilia, not only makes for a more comfortable and visually attractive environment, but it actually improves our physical environment. It improves our wellness. It improves the temperature. Self-shading, paths and streets can drop the temperature between 2 and 4 degrees. And in extreme desert climates, that's really critical. There's statements on each image, and it's really quite straightforward. I don't expect you to learn too much, but it's quite good to revisit the fundamentals because they really do impact how we take things forward. We can often be overlooked. A visual connection with nature. We've just opened the Nekahui. It's our third Ritz-Carlton reserve out of the 8 assets that they have as an operator globally in Costa Rica. And the opportunity to enjoy the Belvedere condition of the site, to embrace nature and to sit almost as a host to nature in the environment. The non-visual connection with nature as well, in terms of but having material forms and materials themselves that are natural, bringing them into the buildings. This is sadly a victim of climate change. It's the Calistoga Ranch, which was an auberge resort in Napa and in Sonoma Valley, sadly burnt down in one of the forest fires, and now it's just bare kind of foundations, and we're actually redesigning it at the moment. But one of many victims of climate change. Non-rhythmic sensory stimuli, wind, noise, kinetic sculptures, sound and vision, the movement of leaves, and allowing that to not only sit adjacent to your work in terms of the architecture and the designs, but also embrace and be integrated within the schemes. This is a recently completed project with Aldar called The Wilds in Abu Dhabi. Something that often is overlooked, and we use quite a few, as I said earlier, we're a very data-driven practice. We use a lot of technical platforms that drive our thinking and the shaping of our master plans and our buildings is thermal and airflow variability, using the elemental nature and the passive strategies of the environment to guide our hand and to help cool and create more comfortable, more temperate spaces, both internally and externally. This is a project in Medellin, in Colombia. And then adiabatic cooling. I mean, I think that's self-evident last night when we were sat out in the lovely terrace area there, the temperature and taking the benefit of the cool air that comes across water and engaging with water, not only as a visual and kinetic tool, but something that is a comfort tool, and embracing that and applying it in many different locations. And the connection with natural systems. This is one of the other Ritz-Carltons, Dorado Beach. Then man-made. How am I doing for time? I'll keep talking. Apologies. About halfway through. And then onto man-made. This is Epicon up at Neom, the Gulf of Aqaba, one of several different assets along the coast. It's a view of the 5th elevation from below, so they're going to view up. But it's dynamic and diffuse light, using the building as a self-shading mechanism, and enjoying reflectivity and colour. And then biomorphic forms and patterns. I think oftentimes this is a source of inspiration for many, including ourselves, particularly when we're sitting in very dramatic but austere context. This is a site in Trojena, again in the north of Saudi Arabia, northeast of Saudi Arabia, where we're employing proportional systems and forms originated from nature. It makes us more comfortable in terms of our association with it. There's the subconscious connectivity to natural forms and spaces. And then a material connection with nature. I picked up on this earlier. This was an interesting commission because we were looking at the first cross-laminated timber structure in Riyadh. It was for MISC. You might think, those of you that aren't familiar with that environment, that it's quite aggressive temperature-wise. Is that my gong? Okay, I'll keep going, just 2 minutes. It's been really fascinating working at the thermal movement, but also embracing the idea of building in timber in this location, with a very with a very enlightened client and tolerant client to address this. And it's become a very interesting scheme for us that we're currently about to start construction on. And then complexity and order. I think we're pre-programmed to appreciate rhythm, and in some instances repetition. And this is rather unusually shaped for its time, the Blue Waters Mosque. We had a real challenge with this building, but it was a kind of a thesis against the colonnade, the idea of the colonnade and the interstitial space between the open space and the building itself, and how we could create this wrap that had a different rhythm on all four sides, and looked very different to other standard typologies. And then prospect. With regards wellness, Rise Biathlon, it's the newly launched Aldar project in Dubai. This is literally completely about wellness. The minute you come out of your apartment, there is multi-program wellness spaces, not just on one floor, typically at the base next to the car park. There's different program spaces for wellness and amenity throughout the building section, but also the ground plane and the podium and the belvederes are all actually activated for running and walking and enjoying. And then back to refuge, the spa, the idea that there is a place to rest, a place to recover. All of these slides and all of these themes speak to the notion that in the increasingly urbanized world, we hanker and crave refuge, shelter, wellness, and embedding these principles in all of the work, not least mystery and the idea of intrigue and excitement, and not giving everything away on the first hit, and the appreciation of detail as you get closer to a building, and drama. And I think I'll have to stop there because that's the time. Yes, there we go. Thank you very much indeed.